You ever been to the circus?
Oh, when I was a kid.
Did you like it?
Well, it was fun. I was kind of scared of the clowns.
According to a recent international survey featured in Scientific American, nearly half of us are to some degree scared of clowns. Around 5% of people are terrified of them. So when did this happen? Why are we so haunted by clowns? Clowning has a long and cross-cultural history. Part of their origin in the European world was the court jester of the Middle Ages, who was allowed to mock anything and anyone, including the king, as long as it was both transgressive and found to be amusing by his audience. In his essay Cholerophobia and the Trickster, scholar Joseph Derwin highlighted the link between the jester and the broader fool archetype, who was thought of as a senseless commoner with a lack of restraint and an irreverence about them. Outside of Europe, Derwin pointed to indigenous tribes in the Americas, like the Sioux and Pueblo peoples, who had their own interesting clowning tradition. It was one that seemed to have held the role in more obvious respect and importance than the jesters of Europe. Clowning to these groups was a sacred calling that one might be drawn to by a spiritual experience. These indigenous clowns often went heavily against norms. They could be overtly sexual, make fun of the sacred, engage in gender bending, even ingest urine and feces. It wasn't seen as a senseless violation, though. They saw it as becoming in touch with something primal and sacred in its own right, as well as serving social functions, including to highlight where the social boundaries were. Scholars have suggested the clown is a subtype of the trickster, a broad archetype whose qualities include, of course, deceptiveness, social marginalization and disregard for social rules, overt sexuality, and supernatural or occult qualities. Derwin highlighted that clowns can serve as illuminators of paradoxes in the blurriness of the social order. We seem to have forgotten these distant origins of the clown. However, popular entertainers like comedians and drag performers continue to engage in taboo breaking, so on the other hand, maybe these historic clowns have never totally left our psyches. Clowning in its modern form became a transgressive form of mass entertainment. Many consider the first modern clown to have been England's Joseph Grimaldi. A popular figure in the London theatre in the early 1800s, it was apparently claimed that a whole eighth of the city saw him perform. With white-face makeup and ostentatious costumes, Grimaldi performed manic physical comedy, mocked social elites, and sang racy songs, amongst other things. He had catchphrases, including a mischievous "shall I?" directed at the audience before a bit, but there was something darker behind the laughter. Grimaldi was quoted as saying,
"I am grim all day, but I make you laugh at night."
An abusive performer father, multiple family tragedies, later disability and money struggles, and a host of other misfortunes all hung over Grimaldi's life and entertainment career. He died in poverty despite his efforts and influence. In his edit of the clown's memoirs, Charles Dickens highlighted these dark aspects and portrayed Grimaldi as a tortured entertainer with the mask of humor. This is thought by some scholars to be part of the origin of the modern dark clown. It couldn't have helped that Grimaldi's French equivalent, who played the mime character Pierrot, was accused of hitting and killing a child with a walking stick. Depictions of clowns in fiction as having a dark side go all the way back to this early period, from a killer jester in a Poe story to a jilted clown in the opera Pagliacci, who murders his lover and exclaims, "The comedy is finished." In the late 1800s, alongside the dark depictions, clowns broadened their appeal and entertained people at circuses and carnivals. It sounds like they were almost like the Jackass of their time, for a crude comparison. Although Grimaldi already had the basic modern clown look down, circus and carnival clowns brought up the whimsy, wearing wildly exaggerated clothing and makeup to make sure the audience could see every comically bizarre expression and movement. The modern scary clown can be traced to these exaggerated circus clowns, as well as media like the 1928 film The Man Who Laughs, whose look inspired Batman's nemesis the Joker beginning in 1940. During the Depression, there was Weary Willy, the funny but sad tramp clown based on the era's homeless itinerants. The 3 generations of men who played Willy had a connection to the character that was another level of dark. The character practically became another personality for the Kelly family. The youngest eventually became addicted to drugs and killed his 2 lovers, fingering Willy as his accomplice. Clowns had their most innocent commercialized era when they entered the realm of children's entertainment, with TV shows like Bozo, who beginning in 1949 invaded the airwaves with various stations around the country hosting their very own local Bozos and other similar kid-friendly clowns. And of course,
if you want something to smile about, just say cheeseburger.
But this innocent act fooled no one, and pretty soon creatives subverted the happy clown and asked what was behind the wide smile, and what did they want with our kids? If you watched Poltergeist, clown dolls at least had sinister plans. Stephen King's 1986 novel It introduced us to Pennywise.
Aren't you going to say hello?
In the survey mentioned in the opening, one big contributor to fear of clowns was found to be fictional portrayals like Pennywise, played by Tim Curry in the 1990 TV movie, and Bill Skarsgård in the late 20-teens. It seemed like the It miniseries practically scarred a whole age group.
Here I am, Wheezy.
Scary clowns in media consciously exaggerated the most off-putting aspects of the clown, making many members of the public eye clowns as a whole more suspiciously. Real-life serial killer John Wayne Gacy had in his spare time performed as a rather unsettling clown called Pogo before his horrific crimes were discovered in 1978. Gacy exemplified the darkest heart of the trickster, a pathological liar and deviant sadist who wore the mask of a nice everyman who served the community. The murderer of over 30 young men and boys once said, "When you clowned, you're hiding your image. There are things you could do that you couldn't as a person." In that quote, clowns can get away with murder. With and without the makeup, Gacy was clearly wearing a mask. And the fictional evil clowns never let up from there. We've had several unhinged jokers. Twisty from American Horror Story, Art the Clown from the ultra-violent Terrifier series, and that's just scratching the surface. Even more comical clown portrayals converge on dark. Take Krusty the Clown from The Simpsons. Krusty was apparently partly based on Rusty Nails from creator Groening's hometown of Portland, Oregon, as well as the infamous Bozos.
It's amazing how those little claws go right through to your skin.
Her claws are really digging into my skull.
She can crush clams with them.
If you've watched enough Simpsons, you know that while sometimes likable, as the series went on, Krusty was usually kind of a bad clown. Obsessed with his own fame, he smiled for the camera, but seemed to resent children and even put them and the broader public at risk with his subpar products.
Those tourists were decapitated before they entered the Krusty Land House of Knives. Next question.
While he's not scary, the show has more recently referenced the coulrophobia that has grown in our culture. These days, media depictions of clowns are almost universally sinister. People just don't seem very down with the clowns. Well, almost everyone. Let me think for a second. That brings us to the clown hysteria of 2016, which you most likely remember.
An unusual trend has been happening across the country. Scary clowns fueling both fear and fascination.
Now been spread from states in the southern U.S. all the way north now into the state of Pennsylvania.
People in more than 24 states have reported seeing the creepy characters.
Copycat cases as rumors ran rampant.
People have been arrested in connection with the sightings.
There are concerns that the trend will grow as Halloween approaches.
Clowns attacking people and threatening violence.
Remember when clowns were associated with fun?
Clowns.
Killer clowns.
Clown epidemic.
What's fact and what's fiction?
It's weird. It's like a horror movie.